And most importantly is the mental strength that you gain through any martial art. But I find, striking, especially with the striking martial arts, is that you gain so much mental empowerment, and I see that happening all on a daily basis with my girls. Is that, you'll find girls that come in that are really, really like shy, intimidated. They're really self-conscious. And after doing, like, let's say the beginner course, which my beginner course is 8 classes in the month, you see a difference in the way that they hold themselves, that they carry themselves. And that's the first thing that someone will teach you when they're teaching you a self-defense course. So what I teach is not necessarily self-defense, but when you're mentally becoming stronger and you're carrying yourself in a different way, you're going to be carrying yourself differently in public. And that's going to, that's the first thing that they teach you, is that you need to carry yourself a certain way. Because if you do, nobody's going to mess with you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the Mo Show podcast. I have an old friend with me today, Halah Al-Hamrani. How are you?
I'm fine, Mohammed. How are you doing?
I'm so good. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. And can I just say, I got to give you a little bit of ego boost here, but this is unbelievable. I'm so proud of you for putting this together. And inshallah, I can only see the greatness in your future. This is going to be like, it really is an amazing thing for you.
You guys see why I love her? Thanks so much. It means so much coming from you. Let's introduce Halah. Halah is the founder of Saudi Arabia's first female boxing gym called FlagBoxing. I loved it the first time I heard it as a name. And then I found out what the name represents, the acronym of it all.
Yes.
Fight like a girl.
Yes.
It's a super catchy name. And she has done a lot of work in that regard. She's been approached by some of the biggest photographers in the world. We're going to get into that. So mom is American.
She is.
Dad is Saudi. Mm-hmm. What was your background like growing up, and where does fighting fit into it?
Okay. So being raised by an American mother, and actually my father was very much a part of me being always in physical activity. But from a very young age, I was in everything you can imagine. Gymnastics, dance, every time we left the country. Because at the time growing up, and I'm talking about the 80s here, okay, there wasn't any professionals available in terms of any kind of sports, to be honest, at that point. And so every time we left the country, which was quite often, in the summer, especially, we would go and visit my mom's family in the U.S. Growing up, we would go to London quite a bit because my father was part of a polo team in London, and so that was also part of our lives. And so whenever we would leave the country, we were always exposed to different types of sports. Saying that, though, my introduction into martial arts was actually in school in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to go to a school that took sports really, really, like, it was really important for them to be able to have all kinds of sports in school. And part of the curriculum was karate was on the curriculum. And so that was my first introduction into martial arts. And I think I was around 12. In all honesty, this is what I have in my head and this is what I can remember. Whether I was younger or older, I'm not 100% sure. But from what I remember, I think that's when I was first exposed to martial arts. From there, I got introduced to an American couple living in Saudi Arabia. And I started to practice Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is a form of self-defense. It's the form of self-defense. And that's where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was derived from. So Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, if you hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is the basically what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was derived from. And I practiced Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. I actually practiced that with my mother and my sister. So we were all part of this group of people that were practicing under this American couple that was living in Saudi Arabia at the time. There were expats working in the Raytheon compound. And that kind of became just my obsession, I would say. I think that it took me about 5 years to be able to get my black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And during the process, I was also kind of going into different styles. So I would practice Taekwondo, Hapkido, any type of martial arts that I could get my hands on. From there, I think things, when I graduated from high school and went off to the States to go to San Diego, I really wanted to learn how to throw a proper punch, because everything that I had learned was more throwing, kicking. So my kicking game was amazing, but I wanted to be able to throw a proper punch. So I started to practice Muay Thai while I was in San Diego. And from there, any chance I got, I was just, going back after I finished university and came back. Any chance I got, I would just go back and try and better my practice in also, mostly Muay Thai, kickboxing. And then I met a Russian boxer and changed my style to boxing.
I have 4 or 5 pending thoughts that I wanted to counter with in your opening monologue, which I very much appreciated, every single word of it. And just chronologically, if I can go back to you talking about karate.
Yeah.
Is it karate or karate? Like
honestly,
Ross Geller?
I think it's karate.
Karate. I believe we went to the same...
I've been watching a lot of Cobra Kai recently.
Okay.
And so karate is all I've been
you just
hearing.
say it like them.
Karate.
So I believe we went to the same school. That Fikir is where you picked up karate for the first time. It was your first being exposed to the sport.
Unfortunately, the teacher that we had that came in, I don't think she stayed more than 1 semester, though. It was 1 semester or 1 year. And so that was just a brief introduction into the sport. It wasn't something that continued throughout the years I was there. As I, after she left, I was more into the gymnastics, basketball, mostly basketball and gymnastics, I would say, yeah.
The question that I'm trying to formulate, and I want to see if you can help, if anyone's going to help me with it, it's going to be you. Why is it that karate and judo is the entry point to martial arts to the Saudi youth growing up in the 80s?
Yes, I think that's what we had available to us. Those were the teachers that we had available to us. And so it was more karate, judo, like you say. Japanese Jiu-Jitsu was just because of the American couple that I got introduced to. But yeah, like you say, karate was mostly the teachers that we had available to us. And until today, I think it's what the country fixates on when it comes to the martial arts, although that's transforming now, and that we can get into that. But karate was the only martial art, I would say, that was available in terms of trainers or coaches or senseis, if you will.
Someone who could hold the class karate would be.
For sure.
But you mentioned that you wanted to be able to throw a proper punch or the perfect punch. What made you want to throw the perfect punch? Was it the movie that influenced you, or was there a reason why you wanted to?
Oh my gosh, I get asked the question all the time, and I don't know what it is. I really don't. I think that it was just like a sort of organic evolution of my sport, as being able to, okay, now I can kick really well, I can throw really well. What's the next step? And that would be to punch really well. And so that's when I started practicing Muay Thai. And with Muay Thai, I was able to, it's called the Art of 8. And so you're able to use your fists, both your elbows, both your knees, and both your feet. And so I was able to translate all that I had, or to take all I had learned, throughout my teachings in martial arts, and then just implement the punching aspect. And that was when I fell in love, like completely fell in love with my martial arts. Not to say that I wasn't completely loving, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, but I think when I started to strike was when I really truly fell in love.
I saw a video of yours on Instagram of you punching. And we're going to put it up on the screen right now.
All right.
I will never get on your bad side ever again. Mashallah. You know what I saw when I saw that? I saw a good, forgive me if I'm wrong, what I saw was a decade.
Yeah, or more than that.
Minimum worth of practice.
Yeah.
The 10,000-hour rule.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. I mean, again, I've been teaching since 2003. But I've actually been practicing since, forever. I don't even know. Like, I'm in the middle ages of my life, so I've been practicing my whole life and trying to become better at what I do throughout my life. So yeah, I think that if one is to start a highly based skill, like boxing or any type of martial art, it's time and practice that you'll see the difference in. It's not something you can obtain or attain in such a short period of time. And this is what I always tell my students.
Can anyone get there? Do you have to
yeah.
have the DNA for it?
No, anyone can get there. And when it comes to, if you think about anything in life, you can definitely reach your goals if you put enough time, sweat, and tears into it. Obviously, like anything, if you put in the time and the practice, then you're going to be reaching your goals. I think it's just having an open mind about how long it takes to reach those goals. And, part of what I see in this country, and unfortunately, is that women don't necessarily view sports or training or fitness or obtaining a skill as something that it's a lifelong process. They see it as a short-term thing, and I think that's where like anything, you won't be able to reach a certain goal, or you won't be able to reach a certain place in your training unless you put in that time.
Yeah, breaking the barrier.
Of course,
yeah, totally.
Course.
Well, are you happy with where we are now in terms of how the landscape looks in Saudi Arabia for women or men? But let's focus on women right now, entering martial arts, being able to participate, getting good at what they're doing, and most importantly for me, being able to stand up for themselves physically if they were ever harassed or abused.
I think that we are still in need of many coaches in this country. For me to be one of the only ones still, only females, I would say, in the country that is teaching this type of sport, that just won't do. The problem is that what I find to be difficult in opening different facilities is that to find a female coach, even a coach from around the world, we're talking about anywhere in the world. If you had an open sort of, map of looking at different coaches from around the world that are females, they're very few and far between. And then having someone come into the country to live in Saudi Arabia, a foreigner coming in, living in Saudi Arabia, teaching the sport is difficult to find. And so I've found it pretty hard, and I get asked this question quite a bit. It's like, do you hold workshops for women to become boxing instructors? The problem with this is that it's not something, again, that you can attain in like 3 months' time, 6 months' time. It's really not, unless you're focused on training fitness boxing, which is not what I do. And it's not what I would want if I were able to open different locations in different cities in Saudi Arabia. I would want to be able to give the sport like a skill that it is, the boxing skills that you need. And so all the footwork goes into it and so forth. And so anytime someone comes to the gym, I'm always like, this is not a fitness boxing class. Please understand that. If that's all you want, then this is not the right location for you. I think.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? And I'm going to let you finish. How would you pitch it to an instructor who's abroad, perhaps listening to this, saying,
right,
elevator pitch, Halah, what does the setup look like in your gym, and what are you looking for in an instructor?
Well, funnily enough, I'll tell you this. So I was approached by a Norwegian boxing instructor through Instagram. She got a hold of me, and she was in love with the concept of teaching women in Saudi Arabia, and that it was just part of what was happening during the women empowerment movement that was happening in Saudi Arabia at the time. And so the idea that I opened the first gym and that my goal was to empower women through the sport, she was so intrigued by it that she was like, I want to come. She was the one that approached me and so forth. But if I were to pitch it, I would say that you would be part of a process that is happening now, a process that you would be literally the person to empower women in a country where women are not necessarily or weren't necessarily empowered. And so it's so important for not just the physical aspect, for the mental empowerment that women gain through the sport. And I think for me, that's the most important part. Like when someone walks into the gym, it's not about them, spot modifying, which is what I normally get. It's like, how can I lose weight in my hands and my arms, but I don't want to lose weight here and there. And so it's like trying to educate them on why this is important for you. And most importantly is the mental strength that you gain through any martial art. But I find, striking, especially with the striking martial arts, is that you gain so much mental empowerment, and I see that happening all on a daily basis with my girls, is that, you'll find girls that come in that are really, really like shy, intimidated, they're really self-conscious, and after doing, like, let's say the beginner course, which my beginner course is 8 classes in the month, you see a difference in the way that they hold themselves, that they carry themselves. And that's the first thing that someone will teach you when they're teaching you a self-defense course. So what I teach is not necessarily self-defense, but when you're mentally becoming stronger and you're carrying yourself in a different way, you're going to be carrying yourself differently in public. And that's going to, that's the first thing that they teach you, is that you need to carry yourself a certain way. Because if you do, nobody's going to mess with you. Okay, nobody's going to mess with me because I carry myself a certain way in public. It's like, I'm very confident. I'm very self-aware. I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm always looking through my peripherals. These are very basic self-defense, pointers that you learn.
You've always been like this, or since you started in 03?
I think, no, wait, I've always been like this, but
Always had your wits about you?
I've always had my wits about me. I think martial arts brought it to the surface a lot more. Definitely. I think I've learned a lot through my process. I think that I've always had, I'm pretty assured. I've never really needed any outside, sort of assurance. I don't know what that comes from, where that comes from. I don't know if, I really don't, actually. But these are things that you can learn. If you do not have it, it can be learned. It's not something that, everybody grows up feeling like self-confident. Obviously not. That's not the case. And I see that that's very much not the case with my girls, is that there is this fear and there is this, just the way they hold themselves is not very strong.
So you're saying that after a couple of months with you in practicing, in signing up for sessions or whatever, you see a gain in the way they carry themselves and how they feel in their own skin?
100 million %. 100 million %, especially mentally. The way they carry themselves is completely different. I've had girls come in that have, being part of, the fitness world as well, and I'm sure a lot of coaches will tell you this and a lot of trainers will tell you this, is that we're considered therapists. Okay, like we carry that role whether we like it or not. And it's not like I'm telling everybody that comes in like, oh, let's talk about what's going on in your life. It just comes up. It comes up. It's something that you're doing something very physical. And with the physical, you start, to mentally as well change. And then there's the days where they're just feeling horrible and down and low and things come up. And you have, I've had women that have had problems in their marital life and in their family life, and that they've found it hard to deal with. And then through them coming through the classes and gaining that mental empowerment, they've been able to focus that empowerment in their daily lives, in their family unit, and with their marriages. And so it has already been apparent to me that this happens. Many, many different examples throughout the years of me doing this. Have I seen this happen?
It's profound, man.
I mean, to the point where, Mohammed, where this is something that really drives me insane, is that I have little girls that come into class. So when I say little, I mean teenagers, because I refuse to teach kids just because I don't have the patience for it. If I did, I would totally.
It requires a lot of patience.
It really does.
Yeah.
And so I see these teenagers who have, completely convinced their parents, like, I want to try boxing. Please just let me go for a month. They'll come for a month. They'll become so addicted and so, mentally stronger that they're just like, okay, I want to continue this. And they love it and enjoy it. And their parents are like still questioning, why do you want to do it? But what do you mean? What are you getting out of it? This drives me insane. And I see this so often that it's one of the major reasons what I think, like, part of what I do, what's so important about it is the education process. And, people understanding that It's so important for your children, not just for the physical aspect, but it's so important for them for them to become stronger in themselves and carry themselves a certain way.
Why do some parents? How are some parents unable to see that?
I don't know. Can you please explain that to me, because I have not.
Is it a generational thing? Do they clearly see a change in the behavior?
I think it's a cultural thing. I don't know if it's a generational thing, because I've had mothers bring in their kids before, and their teenage daughters, and they've been mothers that were older, and yet they were more open-minded about the idea of their kids, in combat sports. Yeah. And then I've had younger parents come in, bringing their kids in, and then they're the ones that are like, well, why do you want to continue doing this? I don't understand. What is it benefiting you? And so I always tell these girls, and they break my heart, because they're just like in a situation where they're like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, well, let your parents call me, and I will give them the reasons behind why this is good for you. I mean, other than the fact, some of them actually don't like that they were becoming mentally empowered. Truly, Muhammad, this is the case.
The parents didn't.
Yeah, no, they didn't. Because then if you are too strong, then you're not going to listen to your husband. This still happens in our culture, believe it or not. And it happens with the younger generation. I'm not talking about the older generation. I'm not talking about our parents' age and older. I'm talking about the younger generation, that this is still a stigma in their mind.
Yeah, that was the word I was going to hit on. They want them to be subservient to their spouses.
You need to be subservient. Yeah. And God forbid you're empowered enough to have your own personality, So this is one of the biggest things that I feel is so important for me to educate when women come in. And I have to hold my tongue so much of the time, because I have to be like, okay, this is not your role, okay? You shouldn't be telling these girls that your parents are dumb, or your parents don't understand what they're talking about. So I have to be very politically correct about it, and kind of go. It's very hard for me to be politically correct, to be honest. It really is. It's like it's not my forte.
No, and I will never ask you for it to be your forte.
But I can't.
Be
it's
who
very
you are.
hard. I have to hold myself so much of the time.
You are a Halah Al-Hamrani because of reasons that you aren't submissive, because you are not politically correct, because you have carved a name out for yourself, and this is your identity, and you either like it or you don't. Yeah. You're very unapologetic.
Very much so. Very much so.
And I love that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean it. But you know what? That's like something that I completely had no idea that you had to juggle behind the scenes.
It's the most one.
Of dealing with the mother and kid relationship.
Of course.
Because they probably don't like how their child is now dealing with them, or like
possibly
challenging them.
Possibly yes. They're becoming way too empowered. And the thing is that martial arts is you have to find your footing in it, to be honest. In the beginning, it might be a little bit overwhelming. And it's like in your first initial feeling when you start doing martial arts is, I just want to hit something. You know what I mean? And there's all this aggression that starts to come up to the surface, and it's only through time that you start to find that inner peace, truly, when you start practicing martial arts. Because I understand in the beginning it's a very much like it's about the impact and the striking and the aggression, and I'm letting out all this anger. And this is one of the biggest things that I see with women in this country, is that's their first reason. If you were to say, what are the reasons that women walk into my gym? First one is like, I need to hit something because I need to get this out. Yeah. I know that for me, hitting things was it's still such a huge outlet, and it's a great way of, taking all that weight that you have on you and just letting it go. And that's where all the emotional aspect comes in. Because when you're hitting something and you're letting out all this aggression, you get a lot of girls that cry. The emotional side comes out. You get a lot of girls that cry, a lot of girls that want to talk.
In action.
They
break down.
Oh, yeah. It's a great release. It's an unbelievable release.
It's endorphins.
It's endorphins, and you're just letting all this stuff out. And so all this stuff comes to the surface, and it's wonderful. It is wonderful. And you feel like a different person when you walk out of you feel like a different person.
Yeah. It makes whatever small problems that you had almost insignificant, and it makes your big problem something that you're able to deal with.
Yes. Absolutely. And why wouldn't someone want that for their kids?
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't you want it?
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know. We still have a long ways to go when it comes to that educational part.
Two of my friends, they're big on Jiu-Jitsu. It's what the
Gracie
sport.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's a sport that is, I guess the background of pretty much every UFC fighter. It's Jiu-Jitsu where they start, and then they enter UFC, and UFC has grown to a place that nobody could imagine.
Yes.
It's up there, which is great for mixed martial arts or martial arts in general. That it's in the States, UFC it's bigger than soccer. It's not as big as NFL. It's probably as big.
Is it not as big as NFL
No,
yet?
NFL's the golden child.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about
It's
that.
probably for my sport fanatics. We're somewhere between baseball and NBA.
Okay.
That's how big UFC is now.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
And I don't think I think I was very fair in putting it between second and third, which is basketball, baseball. And this is something because it's America's number one pastime, baseball. It's like, and it's teams play 160 games out of 365. You're paying every other day pretty much.
Okay.
So this is amazing for a sport that was born, Hala,
Not that long ago.
not that long. You're talking
I know.
less than 2 decades ago.
Yes.
So fighting in general, or that world, has really grown in popularity.
Exponentially. Yeah, when I was, I remember this vividly. And this is probably with the growth of social media as well. But when I was, early on in my career looking for different YouTube videos or this or that and seeing what's out there in, the fight world, there was nothing out there. There was literally nothing out there. And now, there's so much. It's saturated with all these fighters that are out there and all this information that is out there and all, these YouTube videos that are out there.
Endless.
And so I find that, funnily enough, in this country, and I've had these girls come to my classes, that the girls that are so desperate to learn, a lot of girls from Medina, that want to learn, go on YouTube and learn through YouTube, and they are really good fighters. Wow. They're really good. Like when they've come into my classes or done my workshops before, because I used to hold these kickboxing workshops, and I was like, how did you learn this? And they're like, through YouTube. So it's, all this information being out there is pretty incredible that they're able to gain this stuff through that. It's crazy. And it's sad. It's sad because they don't have the facilities yet. We do not have the widespread facilities for women in the country in this sport specifically. Again, I'm probably one of the only women till today that teaches it as a skill versus teaching is at a fitness.
I'm not happy with that.
I'm not either.
You shouldn't be.
I'm really not happy with that. But again, finding coaches that are good enough. And like for me, the reason why, and everybody always asks me, why haven't you expanded it? Like, why don't you expand to Riyadh, especially Riyadh? I get hit up by Riyadh all the time.
Sure.
And my whole answer to that is that, first of all, I'm a horrible businesswoman. That's one thing. And I haven't found the investors that I was comfortable with to be able to do that. But other than that, is being able to bring in the good coaches that will be able to teach the sport the way I see that it needs to be taught. That's not as easy as you think. To find a male instructor, absolutely. I have a few on my list right now. And I've already, asked through social media and through different venues. I've asked, like, would you be able, and I've asked my students, would you be okay with teaching under a male instructor? And until now, even the ones that are slightly more open-minded are not comfortable being taught under a male instructor. And so we still have, ways to go.
Some ground to cover.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about cultivating one of your local girls, one of your A students, to become the next Halah?
Yeah, so I had one of my girls, actually Naji Al-Fadl, who is now living in Dubai and teaching CrossFit. She was one of the students that I had that was kind of like shadowing me constantly. But she went more, at that time I was focusing more on CrossFit. I had gotten my CrossFit certification and I was teaching out of my parents' house. That's how I started, was teaching out of my parents' house until 16 when I finally got my own location. But she's my protege. And the problem is that it wasn't towards boxing. She was taught all the stuff that I learned through CrossFit and through calisthenics and stuff, because throughout my process of teaching, I wouldn't say I stayed with one sport. I think like I'm an ever evolving, human being, and I kind of am, love all types of sports. And so the martial arts was the one that stuck. But at the same time, I was, going into calisthenics and teaching that, doing workshops with that, going into CrossFit, the same thing, and all different movement. So I became obsessed at some point with movement. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ido Portal. He's a very, very, very famous practitioner in the movement community, as well as John Ewan, who's an amazing also practitioner in the movement community. So I studied under them, went to their workshops, brought John here. I mean, I've done everything and anything.
When you say movement, is it like mobility?
It is kind of, yeah, of course it involves mobility, but it's like you have so many different aspects to it. It's like, it's a part of it is animal flow, part of it is calisthenics, part of it, there's just, it's one word for a lot of things.
Yeah, it's another world. Wow.
Yeah.
Your father, upon hearing that you wanted,
we're going there.
We're gonna go.
We're going there.
How did he receive you wanting to become a trainer for martial arts?
I think that first of all, my father was able. He gave me a space. Well, I used his space in his house for long periods of times. And then at some point it was like, I think he thought of it as he didn't think of it as a job. He thought of it like she's basically, just spending her time teaching people, and that's what she wants for her life, and that's fine. And then when I finally, he basically wanted his space back. He will never say that this was the case, but he wanted his space in the house. And I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, I've been doing this forever. I think I should become legit and open my own space. And so that's when I started looking for spots in 2016. It was 2016 that I opened, April of 2016. And I don't know. I think when he really finally was able to be proud of my process was when, they have this newsletter, Al-Ghummad, have this newsletter that is sent to them every so often. I don't know how often. And one of the newsletters that was sent was an article about me. And they were praising that Bint Mohammed Al-Hamrani was, a kickboxing boxing instructor, and she's the first one to open a gym for ladies, and they were so encouraging of it. And I think that's when he was finally able to let go of all this fear of me being in the public eye, because at some point, especially when women empowerment became such a huge thing in Saudi Arabia, I would say in the boom of 2018. 2018 is when my life started changing. Prior to that, 2014 is when Lynsey Addario, National Geographic photographer.
She's a bullet point on my list.
She is definitely someone I need to speak about, because she kind of put me on the map when it came to, internationally I'm talking about, when it comes to what I do. So she came in 2014, and they were doing an article in National Geographic about women in Saudi Arabia, something that hadn't been done before. And she was shooting women in Saudi. My sister Dani was actually on it. But every single woman that she shot for that article were women wearing head cover. Except for me, of course. And so
it had to be someone.
No, you didn't understand. This was I didn't realize what I was getting myself into at the time. And I remember when she came and shot me, she was just basically like, okay, go ahead and just start kicking and hitting the bag. And so for a good half an hour, I was just sitting there going crazy on the bag. And she got this incredible picture of me doing a flying kick. So I'm up in the air and I'm doing a flying kick. It's a very cool picture.
I remember that. We're going to put it up right now.
You got to put it up right now.
Right now.
Look at
You
just
got
for her sake, just for Lynsey's sake, you got to show that picture.
100%
And-
with her permission. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. You got up for that. You got high.
Yeah. So that was that when that happened and they contacted me, because it wasn't like 100% that I was going to be featured. But then when I was featured in National Geographic, it was, I think I was so scared and so like, what happened was all of my family and friends were contacting me and like, oh my God, this is insane. All of a sudden, my social media, which FlagBoxing was already, on Instagram at that time, but like my followers were like nothing. And
Why were you scared?
well, first of all, I hadn't told my father that I was going to be featured in National Geographic. Okay, that's one. Secondly, I was on the front page of National Geographic online, their website, for a whole day. Thirdly, I was featured on their Instagram account
I remember
that day, and that blew up like crazy. Like things started just to be insane in one moment, And I remember going home, getting under the covers of my bed and just freaking out. Like, oh my God, what did I do? I cannot believe that I'm this exposed as a Saudi woman in National Geographic.
And this is 2014.
And this is 2014. It's not like we're talking about early 2000s here.
Yeah.
We're talking about 2014 when things started to change in the country.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2018, and I become the poster child for women empowerment in Saudi Arabia. I was the Ministry of Information. We're sending all these news people towards me. Like every single day, there was a new person coming in and doing all these like news, just what do you call them? Newscasts or news, whatever, about features about FlagBoxing, how I started, me personally. And it was just a whirlwind.
And a very nice short video of Saudi Arabia also
That was
surfaced.
a very cool one, but that was a local.
That was a local.
That was local.
Looked really, they did.
It was very cool.
They were super, and you were representing, the female empowerment movement of the country in that, which was really
that
cool.
was a local. That was through the Ministry of Information. I believe they're the ones that had it. It's actually the Instagram is called Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
But I've had and those were, I always knew that they were going to show me in a right light. But then when all the other foreign press was coming in, my worry was that I was going to open my big fat mouth and say something stupid. Just anything. They can take anything you say and take it out of context.
For sure.
Which they did, by the way. And then when they did that, I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
I don't want this anymore. Yeah, it was scary.
A lot harder to be okay. Like you said, you went home, head under the covers. You're like, what did I just do?
Scary.
All right, yeah. So back, this is in 2014, but it was a lot different back then. Today,
Would that be the case? No.
it wouldn't even. I
wouldn't even care.
mean, it wouldn't even make news.
No, it wouldn't.
Because it's been done before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having a woman doing a flying kick in National Geographic as a Saudi woman.
It wouldn't.
Lynsey, hopefully she's coming back now. She's coming back next week, inshallah. And she had said something about doing another feature. And I was just thinking, well, what can I give her? What has changed? She said, what has changed since then? Are you teaching men now? And I'm a private gym. So yeah, absolutely I do. I teach men privately. Why not? But I don't know if that's newsworthy, So for me in my life, what has changed from 2014 till today, I wouldn't say very much in terms of the training. Like I said, a lot of females are still not comfortable being trained by men. If that were the case, that would be a great thing for her to shoot. But that isn't.
But I think the culture probably changed a lot more
100%.
than your offering.
Yes.
She's going to see a different...
She's going to see a different culture for sure. I think she's going to see a different side of Saudi. Too bad she didn't come in last month. Last month when all this stuff was happening at the Red Sea Film Festival and all the art scene. And, you had so much going on. Oh, my God. Middle Beast,
Formula One.
Formula One?
Yeah.
I went to that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It was a crazy December.
It is.
What's something we don't know about you?
I mean, I'm extremely ADD. And this is something that actually...
That's why we get along.
I know you are for sure. And I used to always say that to you. I think that's one of the reasons why I was so in love with and, was driven towards sports in general, was I was able to always stay in action and in motion. And like you see, I don't know if people are going to notice this, but I'm constantly moving my feet. There's no way I can sit down.
A desk job is not for you.
A desk job is not for me. For me to do this would probably drive me crazy. I would have to stand up every so often and, move around and so forth. But I think I chose the perfect occupation for my personality trait, and for having this ADD and being able to, move constantly and be on my feet all day, every day. It's been like the perfect thing for me,
Is one way you manage stress by putting on your gloves and going at a bag, or do you have any other ways?
It used to be the only way that I would manage stress. It's not necessarily putting on gloves. It's also just kind of moving. Nowadays, the way I manage stress is I get out in nature. And the older I get, the more I need it. Right after lockdown, and when we were locked down for 5 months it was, that we couldn't leave the house or we couldn't be out and so forth, I really started to feel the need to get out and be in nature. And so I went to Tenoma, which is in the south.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it's really gorgeous, and I just fell in love with it. And then I started climbing from then. Yeah. So I took on climbing as a hobby, and it became like an addiction for a good year. And that helped a lot with my stress levels that were really insanely high during COVID, and not being able to work and not being able to, that I took a huge hit during that time. And so lots of frustration, lots of anxiety, and lots of stress. And the only thing that helped it was being outdoors, until today, to be honest.
You aren't the first, second, or third, or last person to talk about what climbing did for you. Mm-hmm. Is it the whole being out in nature while working out, that kind of two in one type of thing?
Yes, definitely. For me it is. Because I took a bit of some time off climbing, and I haven't felt the pull of the mountains to be able to climb in the last 6 months, I would say. But that still is not the case when it comes to nature. Like, I still try to find myself in situations where I'm outdoors or I'm camping. I took on camping as well. Not so much hiking, because I'd rather not hike. Yeah. But like, if I'm doing some type of activity outdoors, then I'm pretty much in my happy place.
Does the danger element of climbing, is it a thrill that pulls you in as well?
You know what? Heights was one of, I would say, 2 huge fears of my life. Heights was one of them, and I was able to face it head on with climbing, which I'm very proud of myself for, but to be honest.
Should be.
And the second one is sharks. And everybody that knows me knows this about me, and they find it hilarious, and they send me videos of sharks, and to the point where I can't actually look at videos or any kind of screen if there's a shark on the screen.
You have it bad. Huh?
That's bad. And so
shark movie, you can't.
I can't. Just saying it really bothers me. I think before I came here, I swear to God, I saw a video. Of these Australian newscasters. Is that how you say it? Newscasters?
Yeah.
And they had just seen a footage of a great white flying out of the water. And I almost died. Like, I literally throw my phone across the room whenever I see a shark video. And my cousins who know this about me always send it to me because they find it hilarious.
I know what I'm going to send you from now on.
No.
But did this stem from a situation?
I would say Jaws. To be honest, Jaws. I was raised watching Jaws. I was raised watching Jaws in Seychelles. Okay? The Seychelles Islands. When you're in the water pretty much every day.
That would do it for you.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
that was it. That's what did it.
Any of the other sisters share the phobia?
You know, that's funny that you say that. I don't think so. Not like I do. But I think one of the things that I'm going to have to do to be able to is face it head on and go in a cage. I'm going to have to do it at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I do in my life, is that if I know that there's certain things that I fear, I kind of try to face them head on.
And you'll never have a problem again.
Hopefully not.
I had a problem with turbulence for the longest time.
Okay.
When there's turbulence, there's not an ayah in my mind that I don't read. Yeah, it's all coming
You're
out.
automatically.
I'm sweating.
I know that. By the way, that I had
looking
that
out the
too.
window.
I had that too. Yeah.
Like I really get it bad.
I know.
I think of
yeah.
all the bad things I did
Of course,
in my life.
of course.
And then we went
I
skydiving
love that.
on a very windy day, and we semi-crashed.
Wait. So just a second. You have trouble with turbulence. And then you said, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go skydiving on a windy day. Why would you do that? On a windy day?
I can explain.
Okay.
All right. So I went with two of my best friends, and it was in Vegas, and we just happened to be the last people to go out on the day.
Okay.
There's nothing worse than waiting for something to happen, you know?
I know. It's like, just put me on there.
Just,
throw me off.
push. Or,
I know.
You know, if you're about to jump off a high, the longer you wait,
Of course,
you're
I
just
hate
not
it.
going to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do it.
So we just happened to be the last slot.
Oh, my God.
And I'm not going to tell my two best friends that I'm not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
I'll look like a few times. I remember my nose started bleeding from nervousness.
Of course.
Never happened to me before.
Oh, my gosh. That's insane, actually.
And when we actually jumped, like I still had like a piece of paper that was waving in the... Wow.
Do you have that on the video? Do you have that on video?
It is, yeah.
You're going to put that on here.
It's definitely somewhere.
No, you have to put it on here.
Okay, if I can find it, I will... I'll try to find it, and if I do, I'll put it on right now. My God, it's 30 kilos heavier.
Oh my God.
So yeah, we happened to be the last one to jump, and everything opened. It was fine. We were just coming now on the approach. Chute open, all good. Obviously, once it opened, I asked the guy, I'm like, "Are we good?" He's like, "Good." I'm like, "The spare." He's like, "The spare is intact as well." We were just coming in hot, coming in backwards, slammed the ground, and dragged across the airfield. Two cousins landed on neighboring golf courses.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I was cushioned by the trainer, twice my size.
Oh my gosh.
And he got the brunt of it all.
Yeah.
His back was kind of messed up. Yeah, bloody legs and all that. I just had whiplash. I walked away with just whiplash. So I asked the guy before we took off, I said, has there ever been an incident where something went wrong?
Yeah.
He says, I've been doing this for 10 years. One time the main didn't open, the spare opened.
Okay.
I said, anything else? He's like, nothing else.
And this was your day?
So after we crashed and we're like, just, dusting ourselves off.
Oh my gosh.
I look at him and I'm like, has that ever happened? He's like, buddy.
But you know what? Because you got the worst of it, you're not going to be scared to do it again, because what are the freaking odds of that happening again, right?
Do it again, I won't do it.
You won't do it again?
No, I won't do it. This is God saying, listen, I gave you another chance. But the net gain here is all as long as the plane is still flying and people aren't screaming, no amount of turbulence will scare me anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
You gained that out of out of jumping out of a plane?
For whatever reason.
Really?
I did. Yes, I did. But I had that turbulence problem.
Right.
The slightest hazza.
Yes, yeah.
I'm like,
nope, I'm gonna die.
Please go back to smooth.
I
knew I shouldn't have taken this plane. I shouldn't have. And
I still have that. I think I still have that.
So we were on a Emirates flight to Dubai, and all airlines have face air pockets. It's normal. Mm-hmm. We dropped for a very long 5 seconds.
It's like one of those
air pockets. Yeah. So if you're walking in the aisle, you'll hit.
Oh my God! Was anyone walking?
No one was walking because there was turbulence earlier.
Prior.
And captain said put on the seatbelt.
Okay.
But if you walk, that's when you hit the top.
Okay.
We dropped for 5 seconds. I was fine.
Oh my gosh!
I would have probably passed out before the day of skydiving.
Of course, 100%.
It would have knocked me unconscious.
I'm dead.
No chance. And I was like, okay, we see Dubai there.
When did you go skydiving? What year was it?
2003.
2003.
Same
okay,
year,
so you've been living like a really nice, solid amount of time without having that, sphere of turbulence.
But 20 years up until 2003, I had a major phobia. It's kind of like you and sharks.
Oh, yeah.
And really, really, it was bad.
I know. You got to face your fear.
You got to face, and that's why
face your fear.
that story and the moral of it is that if you face your fears,
you will come out, better for it.
9 times out of 10.
Yes.
You will.
9 times out of 10, you won't be scraped on the floor jumping out of a plane.
Back to serious.
Back to serious or series?
Back to seriousness.
Seriousness.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
To tone you down a little bit.
Let's go.
Have you ever had any experience or feelings of depression? And if you did,
That is an interesting question, Mohammed.
how did you combat it or get over it?
Well, when I was in college, I went through a very, very, very horrible time. I don't know for what reason it was, to be honest, but I was going through like severe depression. This is when I was in San Diego.
Okay.
And I actually reached out to a doctor to get help. And I started seeing a therapist and I started taking medication for it. And it got me through a really hard time. And at the same time, I was diagnosed with ADD at the same time. So prior to going and being diagnosed in the States, I had lived my life through ADD without ever being diagnosed because nobody knew what it was. Yeah. They just kind of labeled me as the naughty kid, the kid that couldn't pay attention, the kid that always did horrible on tests. And during the same time of me seeking help for my depression, I was also getting help for my ADD. And so they kind of happened hand in hand and at the same time with the same therapist. And so I think that process alone really, really helped get me out of my depression. And I took medication for it for maybe a year, 2 years. And then it was funnily enough, when I moved back to Saudi, I stopped taking all meds because I was even on medication for ADD.
Yeah. Can I just chime in?
Yeah.
I saw a doctor too when I was living in Boston, and they said I have ADD. We established
you
that.
You definitely do.
And they
let's be real. I can always spot the person that has it. I swear to God, I have students that I spot. I'm like, you're definitely ADD.
I struggle at my desk job.
I know. It's
I just
such
need
a
to
struggle.
be freed into the world.
I'm sure you found ways though of coping because we develop coping mechanisms. Yeah. Because we have to. Yeah. Because we have to.
So they hooked me up with Adderall.
Yeah. And, that was the stuff.
The blue.
That was the
blue
stuff.
thing.
No, that's Ritalin.
Adderall. The
Are
blue.
you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so is it different?
And I'm like, it's not for me. It made me feel weird. And I just pretended to take it. I never took it. And I don't think I've ever recovered.
I was addicted to Adderall. And this is why I would never, ever, if someone told me, would you recommend putting my kid or whatever on medication for ADD? I would say, hell no, hell no, hell no.
It's addictive?
It's a very addictive. It is a methamphetamine. It's a methamphetamine.
It's a methamphetamine.
It's a derivative of methamphetamine.
Do you know that the kids in school used to say, Mo, if you don't want it, please give it to us?
Of course. People would be selling it left, right, and center in university because they knew that people would want it. First of all, people who do not suffer from ADD, actually, the complete opposite happens to them. It's like they can't pay attention if they're on Adderall or Ritalin or whatever. There's so many different ones now. But I found that it did help me. It did help me. But what it also did was I never ate. I had no appetite. I weighed 100 pounds. I didn't sleep very well because it is a speed. So it keeps you active and it keeps your mind active. So even when my body would be tired, my mind would be continuously active. I was taking a ridiculous amount as well. Like it wasn't like I was taking one pill a day. I was taking multiple pills.
Okay. And the recommended dose is one a day?
It depends. Like the thing is that your body starts to get so used to it that you're taking, let's say, 20 milligrams a day, and then your tolerance starts to build up. And so you start taking 40, then you start in 60, and then you're like overdoing the hell out of it. And it was just this feeling that I didn't want to. I felt very, very, very strong, empowered. I really felt empowered because so much of my life I went through it without having been able to sit down and read a book. And when I, found Adderall, it was like, oh my God, I literally locked myself in my room for the whole summer. My mom was freaking out. For the whole summer, never left my room unless it was to maybe eat because I hardly ate. And read books all summer. And that was so incredible for me because I had never been able to do that. Now I've found ways of being able to calm my mind and work through my concentration problems and so forth without anything. And sports have helped me immensely through that. Like that has been my saving grace, to be honest, is sports. And now I'm starting to read again. And so like what part of my hobbies would be reading would be a big one. I love reading now and I love fiction especially.
So with maturity and age, you managed to realize that there are natural remedies.
100%. 100%.
I wish that sentence is something that can be used today when doctors look to prescribe medicines to children now who are 16, 17, 18 in high school.
Crazy.
There are natural remedies. Like, it doesn't have to be
100%.
Ritalin or Adderall.
No, there are natural remedies. They're just harder. They're just harder, and you have to work a lot with your kid. It's not something that your kid is going to be able to do on their own. You're going to have to be on it with them and make sure. And, you know, the thing is that I have ADD. I don't have attention deficit hyperactive disorder. That's where things start to get a little tricky with kids, and that's where, you know, the parents are kind of going crazy. Is that the hyperactivity aspect where they can't sit down at all?
It's the HD.
It's the
ADHD.
HD.
Yeah, okay.
It's the hyperactivity, and that's where it's really difficult to deal with kids that are like that, because there's just no getting them to calm down, and it's not something they have control over. And so what they tend to do is they tend to take the easy route, which is medication, and then they find that it calms them down a little bit. But then there's so many, I mean, it's literally you're giving your kid meth. You know, I was really worried about my son, because both his father and I have been diagnosed with ADD. And so I was really worried that Talal was going to have some problems with it. But mashallah, alhamdulillah, he's proving to be better than his dad and I put together. So that's great. Yeah, thank God.
Probably that was a worry of yours, I'm
It was
sure.
huge. It was huge. And I actually took him to get him diagnosed really early on. And the doctor said, you know, listen, just because you and your husband have both been diagnosed with it, or my ex-husband have been diagnosed with it, I'm going to say that Talal might have issues, and let's just put it down that he might. And that way he can get the extra help in school that he needs. And he gets extra help that he needs. But, you know, great. Why not?
Yeah.
You know.
How old is Talal now?
12.
Would you consider sending him to boarding school?
Yeah. But not now.
Not yet.
Probably like you know, like for me, it would be if I send him out, it would be probably to the States somewhere, and maybe when he's 16.
You know, I got shipped off at
I know.
Yeah, 11.
11? That's like Ahmed and my brother Ahmed and Salman. Salman was 9.
Yeah, we went to the same. They followed my footsteps, and they went to the school I went to.
Was it Papelwick?
Papelwick.
Yeah. And then you went to where?
Stowe.
Oh, Stowe. You were the one that was like, who else went to Stowe?
A couple of friends. Majid Harasani, Tariq Al-Bahasi.
Okay.
Rakan Al-Fadl.
Okay, yes.
So
Rakan,
we were nice,
Still,
good reps of Saudi Arabia over there.
Would you have changed anything about that? Do you think that you would do that for your son?
Yeah.
At 11?
Not 11. Just because I don't know. It depends on his character.
It really does.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. I know that Ahmed wanted to go off. And I think Salman did a good job of it as well, mashallah, being so young. But I do think that with...
Salman has the character, your brother.
Salman does, yeah.
I like the camaraderie. I love sports. I love being part of a team.
Yeah.
I love it. I didn't have it over here in Saudi.
You didn't.
I love the independence. I love
even in private school. You didn't have what school? You were in Dar al-Fikr. I remember seeing you
up
in the
until
car.
6th grade. Yeah. So in Papelwick, it's like you're a family. You know, you eat, you sleep, you play sports, you do everything together. Independence, looking after yourself, your schoolwork. Even though I was horrible at it, your laundry, your everything.
Did
you're
your
on your own.
schoolwork ever get better? Like, what do you, because when you you said you got on medication, you hated it, you didn't like how it felt, but while you were on it, did you feel like it was better for you?
I used to fake taking it.
That's how much you hated it.
I just didn't want to put chemicals in my body.
Yeah.
When I get a headache, I don't take a Tylenol.
Yeah.
Until today.
You're that
I just don't.
It.
Yeah, I'll just, go for a jog, have water, change my environment, my surroundings. I'm not going to put chemicals in my body. A headache will go. Everything's temporary. So that hasn't changed. Did my ability to become a better student with time change?
You found ways of coping with it. Not
so much. I did not enjoy sitting in a classroom.
Yeah.
Do I regret? I wish I didn't have that issue where I just can't stand. Like if I'm in a classroom, I'm looking outside at the rugby pitch or the football pitch. I want to play sports.
Yeah.
So I do wish I could have taken school a little more seriously. It would have taken me to a better college, maybe even a better job. Who knows? but I won't change anything about my path.
But did you find like at any time that you were so interested in the subject matter, but it was so difficult to just sit and focus on it, that was the annoying part? Because it was like, if I find this interesting, but it's just still so hard to concentrate. That's where it's like, you're annoyed.
Yeah. You want to learn, but you can't because it means focus, and I can't.
Exactly.
Geography was the only subject that I enjoyed for whatever reason.
I love geography too.
Love geography.
In high school.
Yeah. But you know, the moment you put letters with numbers in maths,
oh hell no,
I'm out.
I'm nope. That's a nope. But funnily enough, I found myself teaching my son through YouTube videos, let me say, math recently. So he's in 6th grade, and I was teaching him 6th grade math. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, and I was like, "Why am I doing that? I'm not the person to be doing this."
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah, no. I think people with ADD do suffer a lot with math problems. Like the math is not a thing. It's not going to happen.
I recall at Stowe, Stowe School, the school I was in, 2 students committing suicide.
Oof.
And it was because of how demanding A levels were.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I know not to send my son.
Yeah, so
there.
it's really tough.
That's
like A levels is known to be the hardest thing you'll ever have to do.
Yeah.
College is not the same. When I went to school in the US, it was nothing like GCSEs.
Were you able to like take your A levels? It was easy to because because this is what I'm thinking with Talal is like he's in a British school right now, but I'm thinking that if he were to go off to the States, which is probably going to be where he goes, you know, he's an American, so it's easier. That he he goes through the American instead of the British. It's better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you, Halah, hold any regrets?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get asked that too. And I think that for me, part of the regret, the thing is this. Is if I looked at it as regret, then I might not have done what I've done up until now. So one of my regrets was always that I wasn't able to get into competition. When I came back in 2003, my goal of life was to become a professional boxer. That was really something I had in mind. I had already, after that, I had gotten married, had a kid. And during the time that I had already had Talal, I very much looked into becoming a professional boxer because that was around the time that I started to train with the Russian instructor, the Russian coach in San Diego. And I had even told this to my mother, saying that I'm really looking into becoming a professional boxer. I had talked to my baby daddy at the time and telling him that, you know, look, I'm really thinking about going into this as a profession, you know. But that would mean I would have to move to the States because there's no way that I could do it here, even though I looked into bringing him here, the coach here. And so things started to become really, really like apparent that if I were to do that, I would have to put in everything I had, especially all my attention and time and focus, not just by moving to the States, which would mean, you know, being apart from my husband at the time, but also spending so much time away from my son. And I had a son, and it's not his fault that he was born and his mom wants to do this. So I was like, if I do this, I know myself. It's all in or all out. And I couldn't justify my own life for my son. So that was put on the back burner. So I would say if there was any regret, it was more not being able to get into competition for myself. But then what came out of it was me putting all my passions and all my love for the sport and all, you know, my focus into opening a space for women to be able to do it in this country and being able to get into competition in this country, which we already have done. You know, so I'm not living that life, but I'm hopefully being able to supply it for other people. It's basically I think what it is that you can't really look at your life in regret. If you look at regret, then, you know, the way that it's like the sliding doors scenario. If you go through one door, obviously your life will be different. If you had chosen another path, your life would be completely different as well. And so I think that my life was supposed to be the way it is. So I can't see it as a regret. I see it as something that I wished for and I hoped for at the time. But to say that I regret it, that's a big word for what it is. Because I think my life has been chosen and shaped in a way that I'm able to offer something that I probably wouldn't have done.
You aren't the person you are today if it wasn't for the scars that you carry.
Yeah, for sure.
You remove one scar, you are kind of different. You're not
absolutely. It's that sliding door theory for sure. It's like you chose one path, this is what happens. It's the butterfly effect of life, right?
Good movie.
Yeah. Good movie. Good movie.
Does everything, in your opinion, happen for a reason?
Absolutely. Very much believe in fate. I believe in energy. I believe in karma. I believe that from this action, this can happen. I believe in putting as much goodness into the world as possible and allowing that translate and penetrate as many lives as possible, which was, I hope, I pray that that's what I'm doing in my life when I'm, teaching what I teach and just being with the students that I'm with. And I pray that that comes back to me tenfold in kindness and goodness and positivity, inshallah.
What you're doing is really profound because you're allowing females to believe in themselves and stand up for themselves.
Alhamdulillah.
Unfortunately, we hear of one too many harassment stories for our liking.
Yes.
Here you are giving a girl the opportunity to stand up for herself if she is ever abused or harassed.
Yeah,
because these stories, they come up more than we wish.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think it's just them carrying themselves a different way. And truly, that's where it all starts, is them understanding and believing in themselves. Yeah. And if you believe in yourself, you carry yourself a certain way. And then from there, nobody's going to mess with you.
Exactly. Well, even if it's well before the days of any physical harm to happen.
Yeah.
But just, to carry yourself.
Yeah. If you walk in the streets being confident and proud of yourself and happy with yourself and you're never gonna be messed with. I promise.
Yeah.
You won't be. And if you are, then you know how to hopefully defend yourself. You know how to do something and run away. Like I'm never gonna be sitting there pouncing on someone or punching someone to death. No way. Yeah. I'm gonna strike just and get out.
Diffuse and get the hell out of there.
Absolutely. Get out. Yeah. You never know what they can pull out.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that I need to ask you this question because you've hit on it every 20 minutes or so. But your advice to someone coming up who wants to be the next you, if you will, what would you say to that person that wants to open the second female boxing facility in Saudi? Yeah.
I would say that don't believe that you know everything. First of all, there's no fast way of becoming a good coach. There's time and effort and, you got to put in a lot of the work. And I think part of the way you learn through the process is actually just doing it. I think I've learned how to become a better coach, first of all, because I never believed that I knew everything that there is to know. There's always something, you got to evolve. You have to constantly evolve and believe that there's more information out there and look for it and seek it. Seek all that knowledge that's out there. And just make sure that you're developing tools to be able to deal with people on an individual level. That's something that I didn't learn until way later, let me tell you. In the beginning, I always believed because I have such an athletic mentality and I have, everybody needs to train the way I train. Everybody needs to train hard. They need to come in and put all their time and effort into it and, be as passionate as I was. That's not necessarily the case with people, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I feel like that was a process that I had to go through to understand that I don't need, everybody's an individual. Everybody deals with things differently. And if you're a good coach, you'll be able to spot that right off the bat. I have to be a little bit tougher with this one. I have to be a little bit stronger with this one. I have to be a little more lenient, give a little bit more positive feedback with this one. So you have to individualize it, believe it or not. And so learn through the process of teaching is a big one. big one. Don't ever think that you know all of it, because you don't. You don't.
That's great advice in anything, not just the realm of
Absolutely
what
everything.
you do.
Absolutely everything.
It takes time to build something.
Yes, and I think that's what makes the best coaches. Look at all the best coaches in the world. They're all old dudes or old women that are like have had time and training and taught and put in all of that work, and they've built tools to be able to then translate it to their students. Yeah. And I feel like that's been my best process. Not just studying under a lot of amazing coaches, but also just the time that I've been doing this has been able to give me all that information that I've developed through my students themselves, learning through them, and then being able to give it back to different students that show similar characteristics.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Halah. You have been a gem of a guest.
Thank you so much.
There's so much content, so much advice, so many different elements that you shared with us that is super useful for many people. I've learned so much. I've gotten to know even more. Just when I thought that I know you well, I got to know so much of what we don't see, the behind the scenes that many people don't see, that you have to deal with on a daily basis. Is there anything that we missed or something that you want to throw in there before we let you go?
Becoming more aware that sports and fitness and nutrition and health is such an important aspect of your life. I really hope that the mentality changes from being a short-term fix to a long-term lifestyle. Yeah. I would think that is the most important thing, because, you're just because you have a wedding coming up doesn't mean that you should be losing weight within a month. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, guess what? You could be doing this for your life and hopefully feeling amazing when you're 70. That's one of my other three fears that I have. The third one is aging. And aging in terms of my body not being able to keep up with my mind. And I see my grandfather, Allah yarhamu, who passed away, and he was playing golf until he was in his 90s.
Mashallah.
My American grandfather. And I remember that when his body started to give out in his 90s, which is, let's be real, that it's pretty amazing, mashallah. He was so frustrated because his mind was so much there that his body was giving out. And I think that's one of my greatest fears, is not being able to go climbing on a weekend when I'm 60, or, not being able to do something physically because my body doesn't keep up with me. Who would want that for themselves? And if you sit on your butt for the rest of your life, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, at an earlier age.
That's what's going to happen. So, start them young. They need to develop those, functional movements that every child should be developing, and don't take it for granted. Don't let your kids sit around and do nothing.
Yeah. Too much screen time these days.
Yeah, well, my son is one of those, so seriously, it's hard.
Mine too, and we're just trying to reduce it as much as possible.
Yes. Yeah. Good, please do.
Thanks, Halah,
Thank
for
you.
everything. You're the same person
all
whether
the
these
time.
3 cameras are rolling or not.
Yes.
Have you done live TV? I just love how you don't put on a face.
No.
Bless you. I would say never change, but you're never going to change.
I'm never going to change. I don't know how to change. Mohammed, I don't know how to. Are we still on, or should I take this?
I'm about to wrap up and say thanks. One of my favorite episodes.
I bet you sent it to all the girls.
No, check. I don't. Thanks, Halah.
Thank you so much, Habibi.
Really enjoyed this.
Me too.